Good morning, everyone. This is Mike.
And this is Laura.
And we start off today's proceedings with the Society News for Friday, the 7th of December 2018. On Tuesday, the 11th of December, Laura will be at our Place Community drop-in session on Tuesday at the Wight Community Centre in Mower Place, Freshwater. Come along to say hello between 10 a.m. and 12 noon and enjoy a free cup of tea or coffee. The swimming group are swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group. The strollers will be meeting this week. This will be their last meeting of 2018. If you would be interested in joining the strollers group in the new year, then please call Laura Jasper on telephone number 522205 to register your interest.
Wednesday the 12th of December. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this week from 10:30 a.m. There will also be our low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. The Wednesday social group will be meeting this Wednesday for their Christmas lunch at the Merry Gardens in Lake. If you are not already a member of the Wednesday social group and would be interested in joining the group in the new year, then please call Laura Jasper on 522205 to register your interest. Due to the Wednesday social group lunch, the audiobook group at Lord Louis Library has been moved to next Wednesday, the 19th of December.
The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets at 10:30 a.m. until 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. The Sight for Wight members' festive afternoon is being held at 2 p.m. until 4 p.m. at Millbrook House. There will be mulled wine and mince pies available, and entertainment from Wight Sax. That's S-A-X. If you would like to come and haven't already put your name down, then please call Laura on 522205.
Friday, 14th of December. The Striders group will be meeting for their Christmas lunch. If you are interested in joining the striding group in the new year, please call Laura on 522205 to register your interest.
And any other news, raffle tickets are available to purchase for the Sight for Wight Grand Christmas Raffle, which is going to be drawn during the story writing competition ceremony at the Riverside Centre on Monday the 17th of December. The tickets are £1 each and are available from Millbrook House. Dress for less or by calling Laura on 522205. Thank you to all members that have already purchased tickets. Your support with our raffle is always much appreciated. The Riverside Centre in Newport is holding its Christmas fair on Saturday, the 8th of December, from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. Sight for Wight will be there with a stall of prizes and Christmas wreath making. There will also be a variety of other stall holders together with individual local artists, refreshments and entertainment for all the family. The Melodic Choir, who are singing at the Short Story Writing Awards ceremony, will also be singing at Gurnard Pines on Thursday the 13th of December from 7 p.m. for 7:30 p.m. start, and at Northwood House 1:45 for a 2:15 start. Tickets are available from the box office at Northwood House, www.northwoodhouse.org/events, or telephone number 293 642. Ticket in advance, adults £8, children up to 16 years of age are £6, under 4s are free. The proceeds from these events are being shared between Sight for Wight and Northwood House. Short story writing competition. Later on in the programme, you will hear an audio promotion for the awards ceremony. Dress for Less, in the Christmas and New Year closure. We will be closing at 1 p.m. on Saturday the 22nd of December and will not be taking any new items on that day. We reopen on Thursday the 3rd of January. Thank you for your support during the last year. And scam calls. Sadly, there has been another spate of scam calls where the caller claims to be calling from BT. BT say, please keep yourself safe. Never open your laptop or computer when requested over the phone. If you are a BT customer, phone 150 to discuss any call you receive. Non-BT customers should call 0800 800 150.
Sight for Wight activities. Here is a reminder of the activities that Sight for Wight are offering in the new year. A 5-week yoga course is due to start on Tuesday, the 8th of January 2019 at 2 p.m. This follows on from the popular yoga taster session we held earlier this year. The course will cost £6 per week and is being held at Millbrook House. If you wish to join the course, then please call to register your interest by Thursday, the 20th of December 2018. A new coffee morning will be starting on Thursday, the 10th of January 2019 at the Old Smithy Coffee Shop in Godshill from 10:30am till 11:45am. The coffee morning will take place on the second Thursday of each month. Refreshments are available to purchase direct from the coffee shop. I have sampled their cakes and they are delicious. We hope to see you there. We will be visiting West Wight Alpacas on Friday the 1st of February 2019 for a guided tour, a meet and greet with the animals, and then we'll follow that with a visit to the cafe. The cost will be £5 plus an additional £2 if you require the minibus. The closing date to register your interest for this activity is Friday the 11th of January 2019. We will be holding a chair yoga taster session on Tuesday the 19th of February 2019, which is a less strenuous alternative to the yoga session that we held this year. The session will be at Millbrook House and will cost £6. The closing date to register your interest for this session is Friday the 25th of January 2019. To register your interest for all the above activities, please call Laura on 522205 or you can email members@iwsb.org.uk.
We now read the scaffolding news, which is information of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding, hoarding, also details of skips, cranes and cherry pickers. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. We start off with Cows and East Cows. Current scaffolds: 93 High Street Cows. Scaffold up within hoarding. Cows Library, Beckford Road Cows. Island Sailing Club, High Street Cows. Also around the corner in Watch House, 104 High Street Cows. 91 Upper Yarborough Road East Cows. Current hoardings are 93 High Street Cows. New skips are 19 Bernard Road Cows.
Newport area. Current scaffolds: the Cancer Research Shop, 116 High Street, Newport. The EE Shop, 122 High Street, Newport. Cash Recycle Shop, 140 High Street, Newport. Monsoon and the Blue Door Cafe, St James's Square in Newport. Chantry House, 30 Pyle Street, Newport. 39 Key Street, Newport. Savoy Court, Town Lane, Newport. Current skips, 32 Victoria Road, Newport. 38 Highfield Road, Newport. Building materials, EE Shop, 122 High Street, Newport.
Ryde, Bembridge and Seaview, current scaffolds. Boots, 170 High Street, Ryde. Hills Court, High Street, Ryde. Pier View Court, St Thomas's Street, Ryde. Seaview Pharmacy, Pier Road, Seaview. New scaffolds are 32 Fallen Road, Bembridge. Carita, Stane Road, Seaview. 21 to 23 St Michael's Avenue, Ryde. 2 Spithead Close, Seaview. 90A Monkton Street, Ryde. 6 Winton Street, Ryde. Building materials and hoarding, a car park, Brooks Road, Bembridge.
Sandown and Shanklin. Current scaffolds, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Turkish Delight, 12B High Street, Sandown. The Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown. Sandown Library, 119 High Street, Sandown. The Sandringham Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown. 4B Station Avenue, Sandown. Wilmar Dorkin and Vermaper Cottages, Church Street, Newchurch. Current hoardings, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. The junction of St Boniface Road and Arthur's Hill, Shanklin.
And now we move on to the Ventnor area. Current scaffolds are the corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor. 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor. Jobson's Farm, Newport Road, Knighton. Current skips are Seascape, St Catherine's Road, Ventnor. And the West Wight area current scaffolds, there are none at present. And that concludes the scaffold aspect. And this week's In Touch, navigating university. Going to university presents special challenges if you are blind or visually impaired. It may be your first time away from home. You have to learn a whole new level of independence, from finding your way around unfamiliar spaces to decoding lectures and fitting in with your new friends. Peter Wight talks to 3 students about their experiences. We now move on to the County Press for the 7th of December 2018, and the headline is that ferry firms are quizzed. Ferry firm quizzed. MP questions Wight link over corporation tax. Concerns Wight link has not paid any corporation tax, despite chalking up profits of almost 22 million last year and paying shareholders £14 million, have been raised by the island's MP. Bob Seeley, who has called on the ferry companies to provide a public service to islanders, has written to Wight Link Chief Executive Keith Greenfield, asking questions about its corporate structure and offshore holdings. Wight Link's annual report reveals it has not paid any UK corporation tax on its profits in the past 2 years. Although there are a number of possible explanations for this, companies are entitled to offset significant investments against their tax bill. for example, and Wight spent £45 million on its new Victoria of Wight ferry. Mr. Greenfield declined offer of any such explanation when contacted by the county press. Mr. Seeley said in his letter copied to Treasury and Transport Ministers, Wight appears to pay no tax on its earnings. Equally, the holding companies do not seem to pay any tax either. Wight appears to be making a good profit, paying shareholders a dividend of £14 million. When would Wight or its shareholders expect to start paying UK tax on its earnings? Wight immediate holding company, Arca Topco, while registered in the UK, is controlled from Luxembourg, and its parent company is registered in Guernsey. If this is correct, why is Wight corporate structure offshore? Has this structure been put in place to minimise tax liabilities? What benefit is there for the island in this arrangement? What benefit is there for the UK taxpayer? If Wight was sold and took on more debt, would it have to make even more profit to pay its shareholders? In response, a Wight spokesman said, "We have received Mr. Seeley's letter and will respond in due course." Following news, Mayfair Equity Partners, the firm behind Yo Sushi restaurants, was planning a takeover of Wight. Mr. Seeley said he would not support its sale to another asset-sweating company. Sky News reported this week Mayfair was one of a small number of bidders in talks about a deal. As previously reported, Wight could be sold for £300 million, significantly more than the rumoured £230 million current owner Basalt Infrastructure Partners paid 3 years ago, when it bought the firm from Australian bank Macquarie. According to Sky News, the sale could be agreed in the coming weeks, although more likely early next year. Mr. Seeley has called on the government to ensure a public service obligation is included in any deal, which could include forcing the ferry company to run extra services at cheaper fares. He said to Mr. Greenfield, "I understand a buyout firm is amongst the 4 frontrunners to the purchase of the company. If this organisation takes the same attitude as previous owners and seeks to asset sweat Wight rather than develop a long-term plan, I will be opposing the sale and highlighting my reasons for doing with the new owners and with government. What assurances will you give that any new owners will act in responsible ways and see Wight as a vital public service? Prices for the business seem remarkably inflated. I assume this is due to profit forecasts which make Wight highly attractive, that it is in effect a duopoly and, if you live in some parts of the island, an effective monopoly. Wight possible sale seems a good opportunity to highlight a number of issues that concern me about Wight social responsibility in relation to your profits and corporate structure. I appreciate what you and your management team have been trying to do in forming a better relationship with the island. My issue is not with you or your team, but with the owners and the ownership structures."
Captain thought car ferry was facing the other way. The captain at the helm of a red funnel car ferry that crashed in thick fog thought the vessel was facing in the opposite direction. Following the incident on October the 21st, when the Red Falcon crashed into moored yachts and ran aground as it entered Cowes Harbour, a copy of Red Funnel's investigation report has been leaked to the county press. It reveals the captain, who was suspended but has now returned to duty as a chief officer, became overwhelmed and disorientated in whiteout conditions. He turned the ferry to counter a cross tide, but by too much, fully turning the vessel in the Medina. Mistakenly reading the bridge navigational equipment, he thought the ship's head was pointing out of the channel. In fact, it was pointing towards Cowes. According to the report, at this point the challenge had been rectified and no contact with any object had been made. However, no time was taken to reassess the situation. The resultant action is to thrust in the wrong direction. Captain Jonathan Stage, who conducted the investigation, said Red Funnel should introduce abort options. He observed, "There was a key moment where the master had control of the vessel in a safe position. At this point, the opportunity was available to stop, take stock, and fully assess the situation. It appears there was a drive to keep carrying on." He said it was general practice to steer by sight in clear visibility, whereas steering by compass in reduced visibility in a high-pressure situation was unusual. Although there was no indication the crew were not fit to operate in fog and blind pilotage training had been carried out, the report recommended that all crew undertake further training. Captain Stage said, "There is no doubt the master and mates are capable of manoeuvring the vessel during most normal circumstances. However, there is little training carried out for when things go wrong." It was also recommended the bridge equipment was redesigned, making it easier to interpret. The report has been issued to Red Funnel staff, the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, and Cowes Harbour Commission. Chief Executive Fran Collins said, "The document outlines procedural and safety recommendations, some of which we have already put into action. The safety of our passengers and crew is always our primary concern. The captain will not face any further disciplinary action."
Labour call for Isle of Wight ferries to be renationalised. The Isle of Wight Labour Party is seeking to bring the island ferry companies back into public ownership. At the Isle of Wight Labour Party's all-member meeting in Newport yesterday, which was Wednesday, members voted to pass a motion supporting nationalisation of the companies. The motion noted that Red Funnel and Wight Link prices were extremely high, the frequency and reliability of crossings was reducing, and the profits made by those companies was excessive. The motion also noted the Isle of Wight is the only English county whose citizens' access to the rest of the country is limited by tariffs imposed by private companies. Isle of Wight Labour resolved to contact Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, asking the National Party to adopt the policy of returning the ferry companies to public ownership as part of the programme of renationalising the railway system.
Ofsted praise for college. A Cowes school has been named one of the country's leading schools showing best practice in delivering high-quality education. Cowes Enterprise College has been named in Ofsted's annual report, which provides an overview of educational standards in schools across the country. The college, sponsored by Ormiston Academies Trust, OAT, is among a handful of best practice case studies. As part of the report, Ofsted reflected on Cowes Enterprise College's Ofsted inspection, which led to the academy being rated good in October 2017. It also highlighted the academy's broad, balanced and well-judged curriculum, strength of leadership in transforming the academy's culture and outcomes, the enrichment opportunities provided to all students, and the effective use of funding to support those with special educational needs and disabilities. The school was also ranked the best academy on the island following the GCSE results this summer. Principal Rachel Kitley said, "We are so proud of what has been achieved at Cowes Enterprise College over the last few years, and I am delighted that this success has been recognised by Ofsted in its annual report. We are thrilled to be an academy of choice for so many families on the island. We endeavour to continue to build on these achievements as part of our commitment to delivering a first-class education to all of our students."
Plan for thousands of homes. This is written by Megan Baines. Thousands of new homes could be built on the Isle of Wight as the Isle of Wight Council outlines its plans for the future. the green light has been given to proceed with the consultation on the new draft island planning strategy, which sets out the Council's vision for how the island will develop up to 2035. New rural settlements could be built with plans for a total of 7,956 houses, including 400 in freshwater and 813 in Cowes. Almost 3,695 of the houses could be built in Newport. The new planning document will deal with the future needs and opportunities in relation to infrastructure, homes, jobs and businesses. It will also set out the principles of future development, including employment land. The plans have been met with concern by residents of Wellow, which could see 32 houses added to the village. Spokesperson Council said, "The Council is producing a draft island planning strategy which will be subject to public consultation for 8 weeks. The consultation draft identifies a number of potential sites allocated for housing development that will contribute towards meeting identified housing need. The Council will be encouraging members of the public to comment on the draft island planning strategy and proposed allocations when the consultation period commences later this month. Future planning applications will need to be mindful of the information in the island planning strategy if they want their application to succeed." Council leader Councillor Dave Stewart said, "Our focus currently is very much on meeting our housing and employment needs, especially for young people, at the same time as preserving the identity of the island."
Days on the buses recalled. A Great Life on the Buses was celebrated by former and current bus and coach drivers at an end-of-season party at the Isle of Wight Bus and Coach Museum. Around 35 staff, some retired and some still working, enjoyed a few hours at the former Southern Vectis depot in Ryde, recalling the highlights and amusing tales from their careers. The majority of people attending the get-together were Southern Vectis staff, including some whose home depot had been Ryde. Traffic engineering and office staff from Newport and people from Fountain Coaches were also represented, as was Wight Bus, the former Isle of Wight Council bus operator. People who worked in every decade from the 1940s onwards were represented at the event. It is hoped that the reunion can become a regular event at the museum.
Police probe birds killed by traps. 2 protected birds of prey likely to have been caught in illegal spring traps suffered horrific and traumatic injuries. A joint investigation has been launched by the Isle of Wight Police and the RSPB after the birds, a buzzard and a hobby, were found with severed legs in woodland at Littletown near Bridlesford. The buzzard was found dead with a missing foot on March the 14th. The hobby, a small falcon similar to a kestrel, was found alive, also with its foot missing, on September the 23rd. It was taken to the RSPCA and put down. The RSPB said on Tuesday the birds were likely to have been illegally trapped. The birds were found with horrific injuries. Both had lost a foot as a result of becoming caught in a spring trap, said the spokesperson. Police were alerted and the birds were sent for post-mortem examinations. The report concluded, both birds suffered traumatic amputations of one lower limb consistent with the affected leg being caught and held in a spring trap. All wild birds are protected by law under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981, which makes it an offence to intentionally harm them. Anyone found to have done so faces an unlimited fine with up to 6 months in jail. Jenny Shelton from the RSPB's Investigations Unit said, "Spring traps are sometimes used to catch and kill vermin, and are legal if placed in a tunnel with a restricted entrance for this purpose. However, spring traps set out in the open are illegal and pose a huge danger to wildlife. We have had numerous reports over the years of birds of prey being deliberately caught in these brutal devices. Birds of prey are incredible creatures, and it's devastating the lives of these two birds have ended in this way. We are grateful to the people who reported these birds. If you find an injured bird of prey or come across a metal trap set out in the open air or on a pole, call the police on a 101 immediately. PC Tim Campany from the Country Watch team said, "This is illegal and is a barbaric method of trapping. It leaves the birds, once freed from the trap, unable to land and feed, and it will eventually die of starvation." Anyone with information can call the Isle of Wight police on 101, quoting 441 803 74840.
Eye testing equipment bought. A second handheld device which helps assess patient health at St Mary's Hospital, Newport, has been bought for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust with help from the Friends of St Mary's Hospital. In August this year, the Friends bought a handheld tonometer for the hospital's eye department. The device measures eye pressure in adults and children of all ages and is used to help gauge a patient's health. News of the purchase caught the attention of an Isle of Wight resident who wanted to help to buy a second device. He got in touch with the Trust and offered to pay for half the costs of a second tonometer. The Friends of St Mary's were happy to fund the other half. Patients have to have eye drops to anaesthetise their eyes, but with the tonometer, anaesthesia is not required.
Brexit debate. Ireland MP Bob Seeley said it was unfortunate the government was found in contempt of Parliament. MP Bob Seeley said it was unfortunate the government was found in contempt of Parliament, but reiterated his commitment to securing a Brexit deal. Speaking in the debate on Tuesday, Mr Seeley said to Theresa May, "It is unfortunate for government to be in contempt of Parliament. Would you agree it is worse for Parliament to be in contempt of the British people, which is what will happen if we do not deliver on Brexit?" The Prime Minister replied, "I absolutely agree. It is the duty, I believe, of this Parliament. It is the duty of us as politicians to deliver on the result of the vote that the British people gave in 2016 in the referendum. We gave them the choice, they voted to leave the EU, and it is up to us to deliver. A vote to the Commons found the government in contempt of Parliament, after it had refused to publish the legal advice it had received on Brexit. Mr Seeley maintains he will support her deal.
Ryde Town Council to buy harbour. Ryde Town Council has offered to buy Ryde Harbour for £1. At a packed meeting of the Town Council on Monday, members agreed to explore ways it could buy the harbour from the Isle of Wight Council. They also agreed to invite senior council officers and councillors along to the town for a public meeting where options for the future of the harbour could be discussed. Both councillors and residents expressed concerns the proposed decision to sell off the harbour could be taken under delegated powers by the Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet Member for Resources, Councillor Stuart Hutchinson. Selling the harbour to Ryde Town Council for just £1 should be an option, town councillors said. As previously reported, Ryde Harbour could be sold or rented out, and Ventnor Haven run by a third party under the latest Isle of Wight Council proposals. The authority claims both harbours will require investment of £1.2 million and will lose £515,000 over the next 10 years. Speaking after the Ryde meeting, Councillor Wayne Whittle Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Business Development, said the Town Council could raise its precept to carry out works at the harbour. However, Town Councillors would have to come up with a business plan and a time frame for completing them. Ryde's Mayor, Councillor Malcolm Ross, said, "The Town Council hopes the Isle of Wight Council will listen to the strongly voiced views of the Ryde community before any decisions are taken about Ryde Harbour." Long-standing Ryde Town Councillor and Isle of Wight Council member, Councillor Charles Chapman, added, "We should be building on what we have by putting in more investment into the harbour and not selling it. We should build a new harbour master's office, incorporating facilities for visiting sailors and residents alike." Acting chairman of the Ryde Society, John Dent, also raised concerns about the proposed sale in an open letter to council leader, Councillor Dave Stewart.
Thousands of child images. A Shanklin man who collected more than 1,800 indecent images of children, some as young as 5, avoided prison at the Isle of Wight Crown Court. Hamilton Russell of Blythe Way had collected images of children, some being abused, between the ages of 5 and 15, over a 6-year period. Simon Foster, prosecuting, told the court the 32-year-old used an app to search porn, would often use the term teen, and had searched for images of children. The court heard Russell did not use regular porn sites, but admitted he may have shared links. In mitigation, Barry Arnott said Russell was of previous good character and had demonstrated steps he had taken to overcome his addiction. Mr. Arnott said when he pleaded guilty, he lost his job. He brought shame upon himself and had to leave the home at first. Russell had sought help from his GP, the court heard. His family, who attended court, had written character references to the judge and said they supported him. Mr. Arnott said with the support of his family, Russell could take the necessary steps to prevent reoffending. Sentencing Russell to 9 months in prison, suspended for 2 years, Judge Price said, "If it were not for people like you, children would not be abused and images put online." Judge Price noted Russell had a supportive family, an early guilty plea and no previous convictions. Russell was also sentenced to 100 hours of unpaid work, put on the sex offenders register, and enrolled in a rehabilitation programme.
School requires improvement. An Isle of Wight primary school where teaching was not good enough and confused pupils did not make enough progress has been criticised by Ofsted inspectors. Arreton St George's Church of England primary school was judged to require improvement, dropping from its previous good rating at an inspection at the end of November. The school is currently run with an interim executive head teacher. Inspectors said the school needed to appoint a permanent executive head teacher as a matter of urgency. More able pupils were found not to make enough progress, and expectation of pupils' engagement was not high enough. In some classrooms, disruptive behaviour from students interrupted learning. Although expectations and learning were high in some classrooms, on occasion, teachers planned activities and tasks that did not match with what they wanted students to learn. In those instances, pupils struggled to make connections or see the point in what they were doing. Pupils then became confused. The governing body was in a period of transition, and recent changes, including the appointment of a new and experienced chair of governors, had given a new sense of direction, the report said. It added governors were beginning to be more active in monitoring progress of leaders. Inspectors identified pockets of good practice within the school, but said it needed to be shared out among the rest of the staff. 2 areas of the school were judged to be good: the early years provision and personal development and welfare. Inspectors said children thrived in early years. The report said they behave well, work well as part of a team, and are kind to each other. They follow instructions without any fuss. The small school family ethos and sense of tolerance at the school were also praised by inspectors. Executive head teacher Colin Haley said staff and pupils have worked extremely hard and the inspectors recognised the strengths in the school. The inspectors noted that over the last 2 years, Arreton has been successfully raising teaching and learning standards across the curriculum. In particular, pupil progress in mathematics in Key Stage 1 was well above average and among the highest in the country. Mr. Haley said he expected the school to be above national averages in Key Stage 2 by next summer, something that it has not achieved in the last 3 years. Chair of Governors Eric Hemming added, "Our pupils in particular were singled out for praise by the inspector as confident, polite, well-mannered and respectful, and the report highlighted how much they enjoyed learning at Arreton St George's. We now look to the future and continuing to improve the education for all."
Bins not emptied for 3 weeks. Bins overflowing with dirty nappies and even a dead rat have not been emptied by the Isle of Wight Council for 3 weeks. Residents at Flitcroft Gardens in Lake have grown increasingly concerned after the piles of rubbish outside the flats have continued to grow. The council said the bins, which are marked with stickers saying general waste, have been contaminated by non-recyclable waste. Maxine Jackson lives at Flitcroft with her 6-year-old son. She said children usually played outside the flats, but had now been told not to go near the communal gardens. Mouldy fruit, dirty nappies and other household waste has begun to pile up at the communal bins. Maxine said, "I am now having to keep my bin bags inside because I can't take them outside where they should go. The smell is horrendous as soon as you step outside. There are pregnant women living here, and all but one of the flats have children living in them." Maxine said she saw AMY workers, who are contracted by the council to empty the bins, approach the bins last week, but they left without collecting anything. A spokesperson for the council said, "We thank the county press for drawing the residents' concern to our attention. We must emphasise our contractors will resolve issues as soon as possible, but only if we are made aware, so kindly request residents report any of the issues online or via the council call centre. With the best will in the world, we cannot resolve an issue unless it is raised with us. Our records show the recycling and waste collection for the past 2 weeks has not happened because of no access to the bin store area, and the recycling was contaminated." So it's Mike saying goodbye.
And Laura saying goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Thousands of child images. A Shanklin man who collected more than 1,800 indecent images of children, some as young as 5, avoided prison at the Isle of Wight Crown Court. Hamilton Russell of Blythe Way had collected images of children, some being abused, between the ages of 5 and 15, over a 6-year period. Simon Foster, prosecuting, told the court the 32-year-old used an app to search porn, would often use the term teen, and had searched for images of children. The court heard Russell did not use regular porn sites, but admitted he may have shared links. In mitigation, Barry Arnott said Russell was of previous good character and had demonstrated steps he had taken to overcome his addiction. Mr. Arnott said when he pleaded guilty, he lost his job. He brought shame upon himself and had to leave the home at first. Russell had sought help from his GP, the court heard. His family, who attended court, had written character references to the judge and said they supported him. Mr. Arnott said with the support of his family, Russell could take the necessary steps to prevent reoffending. Sentencing Russell to 9 months in prison, suspended for 2 years, Judge Price said, "If it were not for people like you, children would not be abused and images put online." Judge Price noted Russell had a supportive family, an early guilty plea and no previous convictions. Russell was also sentenced to 100 hours of unpaid work, put on the sex offenders register and enrolled in a rehabilitation programme.
School requires improvement. An Isle of Wight primary school where teaching was not good enough and confused pupils did not make enough progress has been criticised by Ofsted inspectors. Arreton St George's Church of England primary school was judged to require improvement, dropping from its previous good rating at an inspection at the end of November. The school is currently run with an interim executive head teacher. Inspectors said the school needed to appoint a permanent executive head teacher as a matter of urgency. More able pupils were found not to make enough progress, and expectation of pupils' engagement was not high enough. In some classrooms, disruptive behaviour from students interrupted learning. Although expectations and learning were high in some classrooms, on occasion teachers planned activities and tasks that did not match with what they wanted students to learn. In those instances, pupils struggled to make connections or see the point in what they were doing. Pupils then became confused. The governing body was in a period of transition, and recent changes, including the appointment of a new and experienced chair of governors, had given a new sense of direction, the report said. It added governors were beginning to be more active in monitoring progress of leaders. Inspectors identified pockets of good practice within the school, but said it needed to be shared out among the rest of the staff. 2 areas of the school were judged to be good: the early years provision and personal development and welfare. Inspectors said children thrived in early years. The report said they behave well, work well as part of a team, and are kind to each other. They follow instructions without any fuss. The small school family ethos and sense of tolerance at the school were also praised by inspectors. Executive head teacher Colin Haley said staff and pupils have worked extremely hard and the inspectors recognised the strengths in the school. The inspectors noted that over the last 2 years, Arreton has been successfully raising teaching and learning standards across the curriculum. In particular, pupil progress in mathematics in Key Stage 1 was well above average and among the highest in the country. Mr Haley said he expected the school to be above national averages in Key Stage 2 by next summer, something that it has not achieved in the last 3 years. Chair of Governors Eric Hemming added, "Our pupils in particular were singled out for praise by the inspector as confident, polite, well-mannered and respectful, and the report highlighted how much they enjoyed learning at Arreton St George's. We now look to the future and continuing to improve the education for all."
Bins not emptied for 3 weeks. Bins overflowing with dirty nappies and even a dead rat have not been emptied by the Isle of Wight Council for 3 weeks. Residents at Flitcroft Gardens in Lake have grown increasingly concerned after the piles of rubbish outside the flats have continued to grow. The council said the bins, which are marked with stickers saying general waste, have been contaminated by non-recyclable waste. Maxine Jackson lives at Flitcroft with her 6-year-old son. She said children usually played outside the flats, but had now been told not to go near the communal gardens. Mouldy fruit, dirty nappies and other household waste has begun to pile up at the communal bins. Maxine said, "I am now having to keep my bin bags inside because I can't take them outside where they should go. The smell is horrendous as soon as you step outside. There are pregnant women living here, and all but one of the flats have children living in them." Maxine said she saw Amy workers, who are contracted by the council to empty the bins, approach the bins last week, but they left without collecting anything. A spokesperson for the council said, We thank the County Press for drawing the residents' concern to our attention. We must emphasise our contractors will resolve issues as soon as possible, but only if we are made aware, so kindly request residents report any of the issues online or via the Council call centre. With the best will in the world, we cannot resolve an issue unless it is raised with us. Our records show the recycling and waste collection for the past 2 weeks has not happened because of no access to the bin store area, and the recycling was contaminated. Well, we've now been told that we finish that article and say goodbye to you. So it's Mike saying goodbye.
And Laura saying goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is the County Press from Friday, December the 7th, 2018. I'm Sue.
And I'm Linda.
We'll start with the letters. Invest in Ryde Harbour, don't sell it. From Councillor Charles Chapman, Isle of Wight Council Chairman of Licensing, Ryde. It has been brought to my notice Ryde Harbour could be sold. I have to say, as a long-serving councillor in Ryde, I would be totally against this, as, in my view, we should be building on what we have by putting more investment into the harbour and not selling it. We should build a new harbour master's office, incorporating facilities for visiting sailors and residents alike. As an example, a washing machine and showers, and a small chandlery. There also could be a unit of Visit Isle of Wight to take forward Ryde and the island.
Our ferry prices are reasonable, says Mr. David Bernard of Newport. Jonathan Young's statement in the County Press of the 23rd of November, while in Scotland the ferries operate on fares which are a fraction of the Isle of Wight's charges, is somewhat economical in the truth. Firstly, he is not comparing like with like. Very few, if any, of Scotland's ferries operate anywhere near the service levels of those ferries crossing the Solent. Secondly, he fails to mention the Scottish Government pays quite significant subsidies to enable fares to be kept at an affordable price. That said, I have a day return booking on December the 17th for a car and 4 passengers travelling to the mainland for £39.50 return. That's less than £5 per person each way. A crossing from the Isle of Mull to Oban on the same day, a similar distance and journey time, would cost £55.60 return.
Businesses back us to make tree project possible. From Matt Sainsbury and all at Newport Fire Station. Islanders have had the pleasure of seeing the Christmas tree on top of Newport Fire Station Tower for more than 30 years. It takes a lot of organising and wouldn't be possible without the generosity of local businesses. Without Shide Nurseries, there wouldn't be a tree. They have kindly donated a tree for years. The manager, Peter, lets us walk around the fields at Knighton to choose the tree, which is then cut down and delivered to us. Once delivered, we work around fire service incidents and the right weather conditions to enable us to put the tree up safely. The safety aspect of displaying the tree so high and making sure everything is safe and secure is extremely important, and this is made possible by Spencer Rigging, ACE Scaffolding and MG Scaffolding. Lighting the tree is also an expensive task, which is kindly covered by Newport Parish Council and donations from local residents. Thanks to them, the lights on the tree shine bright for all to enjoy. And finally, a special thanks to F.W. Marsh. Without the team from the engineering company, our tree would not have a star.
And now from Leah Southam of Ryde, entitled Blood Angels. I just wanted to thank the phlebotomy ladies at Ryde Clinic. They are faced with a huge number of people waiting on a daily basis for their blood to be taken, and never once do they complain. They have a smile on their faces and always say hello. Once again, I just wanted to thank them all, especially Debs, who can always find my vein when not many others can. I wish them all a very happy Christmas and 2019.
From Wendy Mitchell in Cowes. Pension rules unfair. I'm unfortunate enough to have been born in 1956. Therefore, I will have to wait until I am 66 years old for my state pension, 6 years later than friends who are just a couple of years older than me. I've worked since 1974 and before that, even had a Saturday job. I was employed all of the time my children were growing up and have studied in the evenings to progress my career. In July 2015, when suffering with severe sciatica, I could no longer work in reception class. I handed in my notice as no other job was available to me at the school. The sciatica became debilitating. I could manage to stand and bend for about 2 hours a day. I could not drive, carry shopping, or use a hoover. My husband had to drive me everywhere, do the housework, and I had to rely on him for any money that I spent. I have no income. In January, I had an op that cured the sciatica completely 3 years after the onset, and I'm now working on building up the stamina and fitness. It is, however, very difficult getting a job at 62, especially after having been so disabled. I'm not alone. Women born at this time are not asking for handouts just for what everyone else in the country has been entitled to. It is not just the pension, but free bus travel, concessions, and other benefits. I think politicians are failing to understand the severe effect this is having on women. Having no money of your own does very little for your self-esteem. I understand people are living longer, but why have women born in the 50s been picked as the ones who can afford to go 6 years without money they had planned on with very little prior warning? It is extremely unfair.
Korean War Veterans, a letter from Brian Hoff of Hyde in Cheshire. I am acting on behalf of the authorities at the United Nations Memorial Cemetery, Busan, South Korea, where more than 800 British servicemen are buried. The authorities there wish to obtain photographs of those servicemen interred there, and also of those who died but have no known grave. That's 200 plus. Copies of the photographs will be placed in the man's records and will also be displayed on the walls of the Cemetery Hall of Remembrance for all time. The following names are just some of the young men from the Hampshire area who gave their lives in Korea. Private Donald Hobden, Private Ronald J. Burton, Lance Corporal Derek D. Blair, SPR James Goodman, Pilot 3 Stanley W. E. Ford, Royal Navy, Private Eric E. Harrison, Corporal Roy L. V. Hurst, Fusilier Basil L. Cox, Lieutenant Alexander Rennie Taylor, Private Raymond T. Othen, Private John D. Heward, and Lance Bombardier Ralph Archer. Any family or friend who lost a loved one in the Korean War of 1950 to 51 and wishes to take part can send the photograph to me, Brian Hoff, that's spelled Hough, 116 Fields Farm Road, Hyde, Cheshire, SK1 43NP.
Battle for Brexit, from Daryl Pitcher in Wootton. On June the 23rd, 2016, more than 49,000 islanders voted to leave the European Union. On November the 14th, 2018, Prime Minister Theresa May dashed their hopes by surrendering to the EU on almost every point that Brexit stood for. The next day, the island's MP, Bob Seeley, sold them out still further by coming out in support of this terrible deal. Where do we, the majority of islanders, turn? In order to get the Brexit that we voted for back in 2016, we need to organise and campaign. This is the task of the recently launched Battle for Brexit. There is no doubt we have been badly let down by a Prime Minister who has reneged on many of the manifesto promises she was elected on. Our future as an independent trading nation is in serious jeopardy. We have bargained away our fishing rights. We have handed the Spanish a veto over Gibraltar. We have split Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. The European Court of Justice will still reign over our judicial system. There will be no escape from the single market nor from the customs union. Our army is signed over to the EU. EU citizens living here will have greater rights than native citizens, all for the princely sum of £39 billion, rising to £60 billion if the process is extended, which it surely will be. In the referendum campaign of 2016, we fought for full sovereignty. Now we must fight that battle for Brexit once more.
And now another view. This is from Terry Hack of Bryston. Blame the EU, not the PM, for Brexit mess. Brexit is a mess due to Mrs May, we are told. I didn't vote Conservative, but beg to differ. She could have done better, but she made only one really major mistake. Nevertheless, the main sabotage was always to come from Europe itself, not her. Their desperate quandary is that for the last 34 consecutive years, the UK has been the second largest contributor to the EU, except for occasional years when we dropped to third. So losing our contribution will be a near disaster for them. Then, if only one of the other large EU countries also left, it would bring the EU to its knees, and that frightens the EU witless. When Mrs May, clutching her poisoned chalice, went to the EU, she was cruelly ostracised and treated abominably, with the utmost hostility and discourtesy. I don't think this behaviour was personal per se, but it might just as well have been. The EU had to bring the UK to its knees to discourage other EU countries. Any Prime Minister would have been treated similarly, and it will continue unabated for some time, following our exit date for the same reason. Although successfully played down by the EU, its other massive nightmare is if Britain were to leave without a deal. They know if we can keep the Labour Party out of office for the time being, this country will very soon be working quite well outside the EU. But most importantly, although we'll undoubtedly suffer some interim hardship, they won't get the expected 40 billion, and most of our contributions stop dead. The PM's mistake? In any negotiation, you include such a powerful big gun right from the outset, so that it unnervingly stares them in the face as a constant subliminal threat throughout. But she did not. It has now lost much of its leverage. Paradoxically, if the Conservatives had opted to remain, Jeremy Corbyn, always a strong opponent of Europe, could then have broken his self-imposed silence and come off the fence to support Brexit wholeheartedly and unconditionally, if only to triumph over the Conservatives. Never mind the people's referendum.
Parking charges short-sighted, from J.A. Geimer in Wootton Bridge. May I offer my sympathy and support to all local shopkeepers, particularly in the areas of Union Street, Ryde and Upper St James Street, Newport. Such ill-conceived and short-sighted measures over parking charges, County Press the 2nd of November, will only bring more shop closures and hardship to a society with still rising poverty levels. Austerity is not over. If our local councillors have such intrinsic pragmatism, let them declare how much they earn from council salary, expenses and any other gratuities or pecuniaries, and how much they voluntarily subscribe back to the council budget. Are our local councillors allowed privileged parking at County Hall? If so, when and for how long? Parking charges should not be used to augment budgetary cuts. Such shortfalls are a matter for central government, particularly now we are told austerity is over. And there's an editor's footnote. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson confirmed Isle of Wight Council officers and members are charged a reduced rate for parking at County Hall.
And now we move on to looking back. 100 years ago, December the 7th, 1918. The post-war general election was imminent. The county press reported there was every reason why Island men should vote solidly for Captain Douglas Hall, the official coalition candidate, as the coalition had won the war and gratitude itself was an adequate reason to return them to power. Some women were able to vote for the first time. A Mr. R. Jolliffe wrote to the county press and said, "Women's election meetings promise to be more lively than those of men, but less enlightening." The island mourned the death of Captain Williams, the senior member of well-known dyers' firm Bright and Minns. Although nearly 80, he kept his job and hobbies up until the last. He was a great part of the volunteer service on the island and had won many boating honours on the Medina in his youth.
75 years ago, December the 11th, 1943. The Island Lifeboat Board received a letter of praise from the Secretary of the RNLI. It read, "Your fourth war year is another magnificent record of voluntary achievement. We know with your help we can face the heavy needs which will be undertaken until the war is over." A row of thatched cottages in Seaview had a lucky escape from a fire that was set to engulf the buildings. 2 fire engines were immediately called and dispatched, and all the buildings were saved. Only one property was left with damage to the roof. The fire crew said it was a very lucky save.
And now 50 years ago, November the 30th, 1968. A blaze at Freshwater Dairy Farm prompted suspicions of arson. West Wight farmers were called to a conference by DCI Green after the 10th fire to hit the West Wight in 2 years, all large hay barns. An anonymous farmer offered a £50 reward for finding the arsonist. The island's MP, Mark Woodnut, had a double celebration. He celebrated his 50th birthday and also the return home of his son, Richard. Richard had been seriously injured in a road accident near Guildford the month before.
25 years ago, December the 3rd, 1993. Drugs with a street value of £3,000 were seized in a raid at a nightclub. Zanies was stormed by 100 police officers, some wearing riot gear, and 40 arrests were made. There was more bad news when health and safety officers visited after the raid. The club was closed and its future in jeopardy. In what was unquestionably a day for the picture album, important guests gathered at Dimbola Lodge. The venue, which promised to become a fitting shrine to 19th century photographer Julia Margaret Cameron, were celebrating the first milestone step. Guests include photographers and actors, some of whom dressed at Julia Margaret Cameron herself.
And lastly, 10 years ago, December the 5th, 2008. Police were hunting for 100 turkeys, which may have been stolen by animal rights activists from a God's Hill farm. Sue Brownrigg of Brownrigg Poultry said, "The turkeys are worth £3,000. We have had to reduce Hampshire's orders so we can satisfy island demand." The Isle of Wight College announced it was set to enter the highly competitive market of sixth form education. A brand new £83 million development was announced for the project. Concerns were raised over whether some schools would be left without post-16 sectors. The project was led by Isle of Wight Council leader David Pugh.
And now we move on to Wight memories. The many lost pubs of Ryde. As the island sees a number of pubs close, the county press takes a look at some of the long-gone pubs of Ryde. Researcher Kev Mitchell shared with the county press a collection of images of old Ryde pubs. The Eagle Brewery Tap, Warwick Place, opened in 1888 and was affectionately known as the Hole in the Wall due to its location tucked away in Warwick Passage. Mr. Mitchell said, It was the outlet for the Eagle Brewery, which existed on what is now the car park behind Iceland. It was closed in 1972 and demolished. The Turk's Head, Lind Street ride was famous for having no toilets, and patrons were directed across the road to the public conveniences in the town hall. The Malt and Hops, 70 High Street, sat opposite the Brewers' Arms at the junction with St John's Road and Green Street. Mr Mitchell said, "It closed in 1928, was demolished, and some ugly public conveniences erected on the site. These, in turn, were pulled down in 1991 and a more aesthetic structure put in their place." The Granville Hotel, once found at 22 High Street, was opened in 1866 and closed in 1955, and the licence transferred to the King Arthur in Arthur Street. The Black Horse, 9 Castle Street, opened in 1828 and closed in 1972. The building still exists today, with the curved entrance doors firmly shut.
And now, my view. First of all, from Rebecca Roncoroni, and this is entitled, "Needy People Are Not Just for Christmas." At this time of year, with Christmas approaching, the homeless, mainly rough sleepers, become a topic of concern. Crisis shelters are opened, a Christmas dinner provided, and everyone feels a bit better about celebrating Christmas themselves, safe in the knowledge that for a few days at least, no one is going to freeze to death. But I can't help wondering why it is only at Christmas the homeless are collectively cared about enough to ensure they are safe for a few paltry days. What about the rest of the year? What about the rest of the homeless languishing on waiting lists, in crappy bed and breakfasts, hostels or mates' sofas, with little hope of getting secure, affordable housing that is suitable for their needs? Is it possible that society doesn't really care about the homeless at all? That the Christmas shelters are simply there to show that, as a society, we can show charity to those who many believe are really just feckless and totally to blame for their own situation? That homelessness is a lifestyle choice? Here on our island, we have around 1,800 applicants on the social housing waiting list, bidding every week for a handful of properties that become vacant. Out of the 5 bands successful applicants are placed in, being homeless is only a band 4, nearly bottom priority, and unlikely to be allocated a property anytime soon. To be accepted as an applicant is not easy. Hoops must be jumped through. Judgments, some subjective, made. If you are deemed intentionally homeless, forget it. Intentionally homeless could be eviction due to rent arrears, which on the face of it seems reasonable until you hear the stories about benefit sanctions, caps, delays, or illnesses that have led to the arrears in the first place. Vital services such as the Island Law Centre help people to avoid eviction with a 98% success rate. Their funding is being cut by the Isle of Wight Council in 2019. Another door closes. This is the same council that, while holding no housing stock itself, still has a housing department whose sole job is to act as a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper in this instance seems to translate as finding any reason at all to keep people off the waiting list. People are placed into a catch-22 situation, hammered by the very systems that are supposed to be there as a safety net. In 1980, there were 6 million council houses. Now there are fewer than 2 million. What's left is still being sold off. Meanwhile, services that support our vulnerable are being cut to the bone. Affordable housing is non-existent for those on minimum wage or benefits, and the increasingly nasty rhetoric being touted is this is all down to individual choice. Really? Where are people supposed to live and what on? How have things become so skewed that rats have more freedom and choice to make a home for their families in our communities than people? Christmas shelters are the equivalent of throwing people a fish. They need fishing rods. What is happening right now is taking us back to Dickensian times. Maybe we should borrow that famous RSPCA tagline about dogs and remember that people are for life, not just for Christmas.
And now from Malcolm Mime. Will we ever be able to divorce? I've never really thought of myself as an agony uncle before, but this week I received a letter asking me for help. I guess the writer, who I shall call Bob, sees me as the voice of reason. He's right, of course. Here is the letter, followed by my advice. Dear Malcolm, I'm writing to ask your advice. Back in February 2016, I was thinking of divorcing my partner, so I went to see a divorce lawyer. The lawyer, who incidentally was very keen to come across as one of the lads and insisted that I call him Dave, advised me to give it some proper thought before making any rash decisions and told me to come back and see him in the June. I did what Dave asked, and after much consideration, I went back and saw him on June the 23rd of that year and told him I definitely wanted the divorce. I knew I would be financially worse off. After all, who isn't when they get divorced? But money isn't everything, and I was adamant that I wanted out of the toxic relationship I was in. I wanted to take back control of my life and go on new adventures. To my surprise, Dave informed me he didn't actually believe in divorce and ran out of the office, never to be seen again. I was passed on to another partner in the firm, a lady called Teresa. I wondered if I should call her Terry, but she didn't come across as being a particularly cool cat, so I decided against it. Mind you, she did seem to have a thing for kitten heels, but I digress. I was informed Teresa had the same view about divorce as Dave, which concerned me, but as I just wanted a quick end to my relationship, I trusted her to get on and do what I instructed. I started to question that trust almost immediately. Despite me asking Teresa to get on with it, she waited 9 months before even contacting the lawyers acting for my partner. And then she wasted another 3 months because of problems at her office. At one point, it looked like her firm were going under. But they got some partners in from Northern Ireland, which seemed to stabilise things. I then heard nothing at all for the next year or so, until a couple of weeks ago, when a 585-page report suddenly arrived from Teresa, setting out the terms she had finally negotiated with my partner's lawyer. Teresa has now summoned me to see her in London this coming Tuesday, so I can give her the go-ahead on her deal. To be honest, I don't understand much of what is in the report, especially the long-winded bit about a backstop. I always thought a backstop was the fielder in cricket that you had behind a dodgy wicket-keeper. From what I can make out, the terms of the divorce don't give me a clean break from my partner, don't allow me to forge new relationships with others, and actually allows my partner to make decisions on my behalf. This isn't how I envisaged it would be, but I'm so fed up with the time it has taken. I feel I should just tell her to get on with it. While all the dilly-dallying has been going on, my relationship has gotten worse, and I've even been arguing with all my friends. They all tell me they're bored with hearing about my divorce. What do you think I should do? Malcolm Mime writes, Well, Bob, you really do seem to be in a pickle. My advice to you is to remind Teresa of what you wanted in the first place, a clean divorce. As you mentioned, divorces always leave people financially worse off to start with, but you will no doubt build your wealth back up. This wishy-washy deal of your lawyer has negotiated is certainly not what you wanted, and it sounds to me your lawyer knows this. It makes me wonder if she has put this dreadful deal together on purpose, so you actually end up staying with your partner. As you stated in your letter, Teresa, just like Dave, didn't want you to get divorced in the first place. Even if you do tell Teresa to go ahead with these terms, I'm not convinced it will happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't come back to you yet again, asking you to give it more thought. You're being played, old son. We're all being played.
And now, what's on? A Christmas pantomime of Cinderella will be performed at the Riverside Centre, Newport, next Friday, December the 14th, Active Living presents Cinderella at noon as part of community action. Free entry, donation on the door.
Osmonds in concert at Shanklin. The Osmonds are bringing their very merry, rocking Good Christmas tour to the Isle of Wight. Brothers Merrill and Jay Osmond will be performing old favourites and tracks from their new album of festive classics. The grand finale of the tour, which kicked off in Blackpool last month, takes place at Shanklin Theatre next Saturday, December the 15th. The Osmond family, including siblings Alan, Wayne, Donnie, Marie and Jimmy, started performing together in the 60s and went on to sell 100 million albums worldwide. Their hits include Love Me for a Reason, Let Me In, Going Home and Crazy Horses. And tickets are available from the Shanklin Theatre box office.
The Salvation Army is holding a Christmas Reflections concert. The celebration will take place at 7 p.m. on Thursday at the Isle of Wight Salvation Army's Hall in Pyle Street, Newport. Entry is free, and free refreshments will also be provided. However, any donations taken at the event will go towards the organisation's projects for those in need this Christmas. The organisers said, "Please come and join us and bring a little love and comfort at Christmas."
The Ride Chorus are putting on The Magic of Christmas, a choral celebration including some of your favourite Christmas carols. And that's on Friday the 14th of December at 7:30 p.m, St James Church, East Cowes. And the tickets are £10.
Prepare to be blown away. The Key Arts will welcome one of the world's most uniquely gifted singer-songwriters to its stage on Tuesday. Legendary Canadian songstress Jane Siberry, perhaps best known for her collaborations with Peter Gabriel, is renowned for her individual haunting sound. Jane has released 20 critically acclaimed albums since 1981 and has always endeavoured to put artistic integrity ahead of commercial success. Key Arts manager Paul Armfield said, "Jane Siberry is one of the finest talents around, and it's a real coup to get her to perform here on the island. Audiences will be blown away by her show, and lovers of jazz will appreciate the complexity and nuance of her compositions, as well as her soulful, soaring voice. Folkies will love her warm humanity and intimate delivery. In fact, anyone who loves great music will be moved and entertained. She is up there with the likes of Kate Bush."
Stock up on Glühwein, gingerbread and Bratwurst. A German Christmas market is coming to Cowes. The 2-day event takes place tomorrow, Saturday, from 10 till 6 p.m, and on Sunday from noon till 6 p.m. at Cowes Baptist Church. This year, there'll be a large marquee to house extra stalls following the success of last year's event. There'll be a range of authentic German foods, including cakes and waffles, as well as Isle of Wight produce. People will also be able to buy arts, crafts and gifts, listen to live music from island artists and choirs, and visit Santa's Grotto. Entry is free, and proceeds will be donated to the Isle of Wight Food Bank and other island charities.
Rainbow White Singers are inviting residents to their Christmas concert party, which takes place at 2 p.m. on Wednesday at All Saints Church, Ryde. The concert will also feature tea and cakes. Anyone attending is asked to leave a message on 868546.
And there's going to be a giant bauble challenge, which is a display of handmade baubles made by island schools and groups. It's running from the 1st of December to the 4th of January, 10 a.m. till 12:30. And there's a Yuletide concert on the 7th of December at 7 p.m. There's festive music and Christmas cheer, and a welcome invitation to everyone.
Ryde Academy will hold a Carols by Candlelight at St James's Church, Lind Street, Ryde, on Thursday between 6:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m.
A Christmas party in aid of Dementia UK, Admiral Nurses, is being held at the Hungry Bear at Fakenham Farm, Nettleston, which is tomorrow, Saturday. A second will be held at the Wishing Well Gin Distillery, Pondwell, on Saturday, December the 15th. Both events are between 11am and 3pm. Lucinda Goodhue will showcase her collection of jewellery, which will be for sale, together with chic bespoke designer clothes and unusual accessories. Linda will donate a percentage of the proceeds to Dementia UK, Admiral Nurses, Isle of Wight.
An Alzheimer's cafe takes place at Cowes Methodist Church on Wednesday from 2pm to 4:30pm. There will be a speaker and refreshments including cake and sandwiches. Open to everyone. Come along to find more. Action on hearing loss will be at Grove House Surgery, Ventnor, between 2pm and 3:30pm on Wednesday for their monthly drop-in. Come along for advice, batteries, cleaning and retubing of NHS hearing aids. No appointment necessary. Call 529 533 for more information.
And now on to other news. Garden huts to get green light. Plans for 18 new garden huts on Sandown seafront are being recommended for approval. Heritage GB is seeking approval for 2 blocks of 9 huts along the embankment at Culver Parade. The Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee will consider the proposals on December the 11th. The plans form part of the wider Sandham Gardens development, which will see a high ropes course and dinosaur-themed golf course built in the park. The huts will have double doors at the front, with a sun terrace overlooking the beach. At the rear will be a single door opening onto a balcony with views of the park and gardens. Plans had originally been submitted in 2016 for 36 beach huts across the entire front of Culver Parade.
Plans to transform 2 hangars at the Isle of Wight Airport into a new aviation museum are being recommended for refusal. The Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee will consider the plans on Tuesday, but planning officers are recommending refusal due to access concerns. The application seeks a temporary 3-year consent for change of use of the aircraft hangar to use as a museum, displaying rare and unusual aeronautical exhibits. It's also proposed to provide a woodworking workshop for men in sheds within the hangar. While the council received 29 letters of support, highway chiefs raised concerns about access at the junction of Scotchell's Brook Lane with the main Newport Road. In recommending refusal, the committee report states, "The proposal would not result in an adverse impact to the visual amenity of the area or the amenity of neighbouring property occupiers. The proposal would, however, increase the use of the existing junction and add unduly to the hazards of highway users."
£20,000 grant for lifeboat. Freshwater Independent Lifeboat, FILB, has been given a £20,000 grant from the Department for Transport, which will be spent on life-saving equipment. Crew member Martin Newham said, "This grant will be immensely helpful to us in obtaining some much-needed equipment that is essential to the FILB's day-to-day operations in the local community." The FILB wishes to express its deepest gratitude to everyone who helped make this happen, particularly the DFT and our principal fundraiser, Rod Adams. We can now focus our fundraising efforts on the major projects we will need to complete in the next few years. Among the equipment they will buy is a replacement winch cable system, 2 Mariner 50 HP outboards, 2 spare outboard propellers, an outboard hydraulic trolley and replacement gecko helmets.
Pudsey Porridge Ramble raises £700. A Pudsey Porridge Ramble over Chillerton Down raised £700 for children in need. More than 100 people, including children from Chillerton and Brookley Primary School, took part in the event, enjoying a hearty breakfast before heading out in the fresh air. BBC Countryfile Pudsey porridge rambles were held across the country to raise money for children in need.
Memory stars for loved ones. Islanders are invited to let their loved ones shine bright this Christmas by dedicating a memory star to them. Christmas trees are being spruced up in preparation for families and friends to place memory stars on their branches throughout December. Ingrid McAllister-Derry from Southern Co-op's Free Bereavement Centre said, "After someone close to you has died, any celebration can be particularly hard. The memory stars give people the opportunity to relive happy moments and make sure their loved ones are still included in this special time of year." The trees will be placed in 6 Southern Co-op's funeral care branches across the island: East Cowes, Freshwater, Lake, Newport, Ryde and Shanklin, to give everyone the opportunity to write a personal message. Southern Co-op is also hosting a special pop-in and have a mince pie events on Wednesday, December the 19th and Friday, December the 21st from 12 till 3 p.m.
And now it's time for us to say goodbye. Goodbye from Linda.
And goodbye from Sue.
This is Kate Weston from Wave 105, wishing you the very best of luck with the story writing competition.
Huxley Magic, the award-winning Isle of Wight magician, I'm very proud to announce that I will be performing at the award ceremony on the 17th of December down at the Riverside Centre. And it's all themed over the magic of Christmas, which is my forte.
Hi, I'm Katie Lacey, and I'm the musical director for my wonderful choir, Melodic. We are delighted to be taking part in the awards ceremony for Sight for Wight. We would love to see you there. Please come along and support us and this wonderful charity.
Doors open from 6:30 p.m, with the ceremony starting at 7. Find out whether your story has been recorded by Kate Weston, Melvin Hayes, Edana Minghella or Joe Brand. For more information, visit our website iwsb.org.uk or call 52205.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition.
Hello, my name's Megan. I am 26. I've studied an undergraduate degree in creative writing and I graduated with my master's degree in creative writing 2 weeks ago, both at the same university, the University of Gloucestershire.
Good evening, I'm Callum Stoneman. I'm 19 and I'm currently in my second year of a computer networking and security course at the University of Bolton.
Hi, my name is Kaya. I'm 22 years old. I've just started my university course, which is BAA Honours Business and Marketing.
Well, you won't have needed a degree yourselves to figure out that tonight's In Touch has been handed over to a panel of students, basically. We want them to discuss the whole experience of college if you're visually impaired. Living away from home, dealing with your money maybe, getting round what's often a complicated campus. There are so many things that you'll be doing for the first time. And we're inviting you to compare notes, make confessions, offer advice and tell us what you know now, which you wish you'd known when you started. And don't be shy. Let's start with Kaya. You are the only first year. To what extent has university so far been what you expected?
Well, in general, I've got to say my university has been fantastic, like the experience. The disability department at the university have been really helpful. However, the only problem so far have been the DSA.
Right.
And,
now, we're going to come to that in some detail. That's, of course, the disabled student allowance. Let me bring in Callum. What surprised you about the experience?
It sounds horrible. I wasn't expecting to have as much support as I actually did get from lecturers and from, disability support staff. From how college made it out, they made it out that it was basically, you sit in a lecture for a couple of hours a day or a week, or whatever, and then it's very much do it yourself. I was quite surprised by how willing the lecturers were, and how far they're willing to go to help you out. when you need it.
Megan, surprises.
When I started as an undergraduate, I'd chosen the University of Gloucestershire, and when I went on the open days, they were the only university who gave me a prospectus in Braille. I was so made up. It was interesting because I actually applied 2 years in advance because I took a year out to go and teach English in Germany. And by the time I came back, all the disability staff who were clued up seemed to have gone or moved on. And the disability department was completely different. That was the only thing I got in Braille, pretty much. The 7 years I was there. So they hooked me in and then, yeah.
didn't really follow through.
No, and the sad thing was as well, I'd emailed the disability department just before I got on the plane to Germany, and I said, please could you make the lecturers aware that I'm registered blind so that we can start to have those discussions early with 2 years to go. And when I started at the university, I walked into my lectures and I was met with dismay, indifference, and my lecturers had no clue about me arriving at all. And I was just so disappointed because I think that was a real missed opportunity, especially as I'd gone to do creative writing and psychology, a joint honours degree. And because psychology has this statistical visual aspect, I was forced to drop the course because we didn't have that preparation, we didn't get the support.
And a bit galling, I suppose, that you were actually so prepared, so quick off the mark, and then it didn't lead anywhere.
And the interesting thing is that when I went back to do my masters, by then the disabled students allowance had changed from the government paying for a lot of the student support to the university having to pay for a lot of it. And actually, the disability support improved when the university had to take more responsibility for it.
Kaya, what about the issue of how well prepared the university was for you rather than you for it?
It took a lot of time for my university to find its way with what sort of needs I had. So one of the main things was that I needed the handouts because I can't see what's on the board. They kept forgetting to print it out and in a font that I could read. That was quite frustrating because I had to just listen in the lecture and I couldn't write anything down because I couldn't see what it was.
How did you deal with that? Because you probably don't want to seem that special. I'm
definitely.
Curious to know how you dealt with it.
Well, at the end of each lecture, I went up to my lecturer and asked if they had a copy of it. And that's when some of them replied, oh, sorry, I've forgotten, or sorry, I can't print out from this computer that I'm working on. That was quite frustrating.
Callum?
In terms of asking for help, it was quite easy because as soon as I asked for something, either the lecturers or the support staff were straight there.
What's really striking about this is how random it is, and I'm going to introduce somebody who may be able to shed a bit of light on this in a more general way, and we'll start with the money issue. And one of the issues is, of course, grappling with the forms you're required to deal with to claim DSA, Disabled Student Allowance. Just to make it clear, it's a grant designed to help with the added costs of being at university, getting right access technology, coursework in a form you can read, note-taking at lectures and finding your way around what are often complex campuses. One guest here who hasn't spoken yet, and that's because she's not a student, but should by now know a lot about them because she's been studying them for the past 8 years, looking at how young people transition between school, employment, further education and higher education. That's Rachel Hewitt. Rachel, what have students been telling you about how it's worked for them?
Instead of looking at the student as an individual, looking at the individual course that they're taking, it's very prescribed and not flexible enough. And I'd question how fit for purpose it is for students particularly with severe visual impairment. DSA guidelines give different headings of supports that a student might be able to access through DSA. But there's only a small range of options available, and actually the student might need something else. So, for example, they might be on a course like Callum's studying, they might be studying something which is more technical, and instead of having someone who necessarily has a specialist knowledge in working with students with visual impairments, they might actually need a student or a support worker who can actually help him interpret those diagrams. Yes, it is limiting students.
One of the things that surprised me was that the disability department staff, so not the support workers, but the ones who kind of coordinate the whole venture, that they knew so little. They asked me about my needs at the beginning of the process, and I explained, I'm completely blind. I can take my own notes. It's just that, I need someone to describe the lecturer's PowerPoints to me and maybe give me some sighted guide to find a seat and things like that. And for 7 years, the support workers had been asked to take notes for me. So, I get that a lot of people need note takers. At the same time, it was just really,
right.
I don't know.
About note takers, Kaya, how have you found that?
And my note takers are really helpful, but it took a bit of time for it to completely be organised, because from the delay from the DSA sorting out all my equipment and all of my needs, and that was quite frustrating. But now it's set up, it's really good.
And you've been there, I guess about 2 months, yeah?
Yes.
So, but really, what you would really want is for that to be in place at the start.
Yes, very much so, because like I said, I can't see the board whatsoever.
And how long did it take to get it sorted out?
I'd say about 3 weeks.
And Callum, what about you?
In my first year, I started off recording all my lectures. So I'd bookmark certain points, where I think, I need to know that. Occasionally, I'd write little notes down in Word, but more often than not, my lecturers would actually provide Word versions of the PowerPoints, which made things a lot easier as well. 99% of the time, I can take my own notes, or I just have an accessible version of the PowerPoint.
Yes, I have that too as well.
I have to say that the everything is online these days.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's really beneficial. Every university has something called a virtual learning platform, which basically means that everything is online. And it's just been my lifesaver for the past 7 years, because that's where the lecturers upload all their presentations, resources, and that's where all students are expected to go. And they happen to be in accessible format. So great. No different treatment needed.
Yeah, it has for me as well, because ours is quite a technical course, so everything's online anyway. In many ways, as long as the university's learning platform is accessible, which in my case it is, you're kind of safe,
Yeah.
I think what's already very striking is how random it is in a way. You've all described very different experiences, and it often seems that you literally have to deal with things as they come up. And I know you've all talked about it to some extent, but I would quite like to know how the DSA has worked for you all individually, and the question of actually getting it, the forms and so forth. Callum, how did you cope with that?
I filled in a form online along with my student finance. Then I was invited for an assessment where they basically just had a chat about the things I can do independently, the things I can't do independently, and suggested human support, obviously, and some equipment. I actually was only hoping for a laptop and a JAWS license, which is screen reading software.
Yeah.
But they actually suggested a scanner for scanning print documents into Word.
There seems to be a pattern here with you, Callum, of getting more than you expected.
Well, yeah, I did get more than I expected, but then I think it had a bit of a consequence, because later on in my course, the one thing they didn't offer me was a braille display. And without trying to go into too much detail, when you're trying to read computer code and write computer code, you've got to be very, very specific. The punctuation and the amount of spaces you put in, and little things can just stop it from working. Quite late on in my course, I tried out a braille display. It was like, oh God, I need one of these. Trying to go back to my DSA and say, oh, I need this now. My university actually took over and dealt with the majority of it, but I hear they had a little bit of a nightmare in actually getting that.
Rachel, DSA should help with that, shouldn't it?
Firstly, we're really finding that students, when they go to their assessment of needs for DSA, that the assessors don't necessarily have an understanding of visual impairments, and they don't necessarily have a full understanding of the range of technology that's available to them. When the government announced these changes to DSA, they really made a case that there should be less emphasis on human support, and actually there should be more of an emphasis on technology instead, which to me makes sense. But what we've seen actually is that the amount of money which is available for assistive technology hasn't actually really changed So I think it's something like about £5,500 for the entire course that you can get to pay for equipment, which when you're talking about specialist equipment like braille displays doesn't go very far. The thing that we're also finding is that because of these budget restrictions, that students are actually not getting all the equipment that they need. So they might have got a laptop with JAWS, but then there's not enough money left to get the braille display that they want.
And in a way, it shouldn't be surprising, should it, that sometimes students will need something different. They won't always know exactly what it is they need. They'll learn that as they go along as well.
No one prepares you for university, and I think schools are now recognising this and trying to improve that transition. But another big factor we haven't factored into this yet is mobility. I mean, I started my degree as a long cane user. I'm now a guide dog owner, and guide dog owners are in the fortunate position that Guide Dogs for the Blind Association will provide the mobility and route training because, you know, it's specialist training with the dog as much as with you. But, you know, if you haven't got a dog, you are reliant on sighted guide and using a long cane or similar. When I was in my undergraduate degree, my first year, they gave me 700 mobility hours. So that was for a teacher to come in and do cane training. But now with the disabled students allowance, the mobility training is put into the box with interpreters. And I've got a friend who's at university, she's got 30 mobility hours a year and 700 or something ridiculous sighted guide hours. So she's got lots of hours for people to guide her, but very few for her to actually learn her way around with a cane.
I have to wonder if that's something to do with the assessment that they've had, maybe not quite defining what support they meant for the person to have. That seems a bit strange to me, I have to say.
I was also given mobility training from the DSA, but I had literally 2 sessions, and then suddenly I received a letter that my mobility trainer has suddenly doesn't work anymore for the DSA. So I've now been waiting for 2 months for a new mobility trainer, and I don't know where all the routes are. So,
and how difficult is it as a building, as a set of buildings?
Oh, very difficult, because with a mobility trainer, they are supposed to help you with routes and even like routes into the town, like the city centre, and bus routes as well, because at home I live literally in the middle of nowhere, so I hardly use buses. So
this has all come as a bit of a culture shock.
Yes, very much so.
One thing we've not talked about and we must do before we end, university isn't just about work, and it's not just about access, and it's not just about finding your way around the campus. It's about making friends. It's a social experience. And I just want to know how you all found that. Megan, you've been there a while now, but maybe you could cast your mind back.
Yeah.
How difficult was it at the beginning?
At the beginning, I thought it was going to be difficult. So I spent my first year living in halls of residence. And I think for every student, it's a real mixed bag. It depends who you end up with. It was kind of awkward from the start, and I was trying to be very, chatty with them, but also just, if you ever want to ask me anything about being blind, go ahead. And by the way, let me know if I make a mess of the kitchen and stuff, because I'm not trying to be lazy, but sometimes, I might be messy without meaning to. 6 months later, I did accidentally make a mess of the kitchen, and they made a massive fuss about it. Moved everything in my food cupboard around deliberately and just stood and watched me trying to find everything when I came in to make a cup of tea. It got really awkward, and the washing machines and dryers were all touch screens, so I spent a lot of that year washing my knickers by hand. Put it this way, I was very happy to move out into a student house, and I have actually made lifelong friends through uni. I've met some awesome people, and I've met some people who are a complete pain in the neck. So it's like life.
You do think it's as random as that? I mean, do you think it's anything you did? I mean, you say it, so you made the kitchen messy, but it just seems, it seems almost kind of extraordinary that people should behave like that.
Well, they're young, 18-year-olds are completely wrapped up in a world of their own. So often I'd be like, if you're going to the supermarket, could I come with you? Because I need to grab some stuff. A lot of the time they'd then be like, oh yeah, we went 3 hours ago. We forgot to tell you. Or I went with them once and they left me standing in the fruit and veg aisle while they went to get their stuff before I had a chance to say, could you help me? And then they came back to me like an hour later going, haven't you done yet? Kind of. And it was just, and the thing is, I was on a bad start because they saw all my disabled students allowance equipment being delivered. And it was the joke then, get her to buy the drinks. She's rich. Look at all this stuff she's got. And she gets taxis everywhere. So that's what I did wrong, I think. I don't know. Not much I could change, but it was a pain.
Kaya, what about you? First year?
I've actually had a really bad experience with my halls of residence. I've already had to move rooms because my first flat, they tried to blame everything on me. If someone left the hob on, it's Kaya, she can't see. And, it was unbearable.
Well, I knew we would run out of time long before we'd finished all the things that we had to say. But my thanks, you can hand in your papers now and start talking. Megan Paul, Callum Stoneman, Kaya Tvaito Duncan and Rachel Hewitt, thank you all very much indeed. And if you, the listeners, want to tell us or our students about your time at university, please do. You can call our action line on 0800 044 044. You can email us, that's intouch@bbc.co.uk, or visit the website www.bbc.co.uk/intouch, where you can subscribe to or download our podcast. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Kumatat, and our panel. Goodbye.